Yeah, people, I'm back. And as I go on my quest to go viral, drinking Windex and bourbon and copious amounts of pills, cannabis, and coffee. As we attempt to get those numbers, those data, the algorithm, and the statistics to go all the way to the tippy top. I was talking about these superstars out here that were going viral. People running around doing reaction videos and going to different delis all over the place and buying sandwiches. I even saw one of those young cats over there make it to one of my neighborhoods. One of our local delis that I used to go to not that long ago when I was on the other side of town. And I just wonder what happened to them. Are they victims of people running up on them like the ops, thinking that they have more money, more wealth than they actually have? Can it happen to me? Will it happen to Uncle Bobby? As I continue to try to trend over here, and maybe even trendy. I don't know. You have to let me know in the comments. As I continue to be the wild man on the internet. Looking to be the sensation right now. You know, the internet Cinderella story over here, the Cinderella man, the love story that I think the internet wants over here. The story of Uncle Bobby taking over the internet, with his wacky renditions, with his podcast shows, the Remember Me podcast. Go check it out on Spotify. Maybe get into the wrestling, and we cover the shows over there up on the Uncle Bobby Experience also as well. Looking to make big numbers, doing tons of work here. And, it might just be getting to me. Maybe the, amount of work, the stress. Doing all these shows and, uploading all these videos, as I try to compress some of these files down and switch them up into different files and store them and, move them around, all this technical stuff. Sometimes you go through technical difficulties, and I'm working, to do all that stuff over here. As, I'm a producer now, I guess, an engineer. And so wear many hats over here. And I'm doing so many different shows, so many talking points. Some people say that I gotta be crazy to be this ambitious. You don't want to be wigging out on the internet. I may be guilty of making myself look like an asshole, but again, I don't want to be guilty of taking myself too serious. Excuse me. You sometimes get caught up in all this hard work. You might get dehydrated. And especially now when I tell you I go through all these issues, with the fluid, the lack of the fluids, and the minerals, and the vitamins and all that stuff, that I'm trying to get back in so that I can build up, the Uncle Bobby body over here. As I'm looking to keep myself in good health over here. I don't want to, get caught up being comfortable. I don't want to get too comfortable. Obviously, I've been working restless. Look at my hair now. It wasn't looking like this, a week ago. But that's what happens when you put your time and your efforts into, just doing productions. Working hard, bringing you bang after bang after banger. And, sometimes you might just get parched, thirsty. And maybe you need water. But you're talking about all these plastic particles in the water now. I was talking about how science was using lasers to melt down plastic into water minerals so people could drink that. Is that why we have so much plastic particles in the water? If you want to check that out, that's definitely something we can talk about and get deeper into. But I did talk a little bit about that on my show and talked about tons of different things, obviously. You definitely want to go and give a lot of those podcasts a listen to. And maybe, when I get to the status of a Joe Rogan, maybe an Andrew Tate or Tate, of the, industry, maybe I'll be able to, get videos filed over there because for some reason I don't have the available technology to get it done. I don't have these laptops, and I have a couple of the things that I need to, make this all work, to bring it all together. Hook up that soundboard, possibly poach, my sister's soundboard lady, that racist lady that won't kiss white men. And, maybe get her to push those buttons, for the comedic timing, for the emotional, conversational depth that I think some of these sound effects, could be utilized for. Give me a second. Oh, let's see if I got that air fryer. I almost did. Maybe I should see if it's, the real deal. I guess it is real human here. I was trying to burn it, not of anything. Maybe for the views, and maybe for your entertainment. Maybe they say that, the summer's over, and I tell you things are still heating up. But apparently they're not heating up enough to burn this hair on top of my head. They may have been scalped and poached by somebody, from a foreign region. They talk about people just getting snatched up. And, talking about people getting snatched up, are these, superstars over here that were going viral getting snatched up? Where are they? They're missing, and I want to know what happened, MIA over here. And I was talking about that on my show, the day that I get the algorithm to give me these millions of views, get these followers and go live and, get everybody riled up. I was wondering, do you get approached, by some weird characters, possibly working for a demonic spirit or an aura? Or do you get approached by a reptilian looking for the DNA and honoring rights to your skin? Or possibly, clone you several different times. We wanted to run that by you, and they did talk a little bit about that on the show. Something that I want to dive deeper into when I get the chance. But, we're looking for people to be interactive. We're looking for, the community, the YouTube community, and the community going global. When we think about France, Argentina, Australia, Poland, UK, Australia, Argentina, Puerto Rico, anywhere that YouTube could be found. I like to think that, Uncle Bobby, in a wacky world of his antics, could be, a part of your low-time talk conversations. And possibly your childish needs over here, your desires for some form of, online entertainment is looking to bring up the entertainment value. And I did want to, use this to take the time to kind of just catch the people up on, other projects that I'm doing, and I'm working on these videos, working on the creativity, and, and keeping things, a little bit fresh, a little bit different, and pretty much looking for this creative growth here. I'm looking for the community to grow here. We're looking for more people to be inducted into the cult of Uncle Bobby. And continue to keep that cauldron cold, full of that crystal light, because I can't drink any Kool-Aid, with my diabetic issues. When we talk about being the Titan, the Kaiju, the Juggernaut, the Titan, the Momoa, the Helmsworth, even with the Missing Front Teeth and the Jack's Beefly Jerky Yeti over here. Maybe I'm starting to look like that crazy man from the insurrection from January 6th over here with his hair. Oh, I don't want to get demonetized any more than I possibly already get. I don't know how much heat you get over YouTube. When I've had broken a couple of agreements with them, they said, because I don't read the contractuals. Who does? Do you read all the fine printing? That's probably why I'm not successful right now. But I'm learning, from my mistakes and, my mishaps, my misfires. And I'm trying to put it all together, everything that I've learned so far, as far as this apps, availabilities, and anything else that I can add to it. Now that I get a good look at myself, I feel like at some points I look like a Cactus Jack over here, looking like I'm a hardcore champ, but the only thing I'm looking to be is the people's champ. And I'm looking to be the guy to strip that title from around Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's waistline, exposing this man's waistline to Johnson, and to sport that championship around my waistline. As we talk about the adult time conversation, what should be the adult time drink to go with that conversation? What do you find folks drinking in your homes, while you have your sandwiches? One in the front, one in the back, and having a good time. Or that other sandwich, like I like to bring everybody together, one slice of bread and another slice of bread coming together. But anyway, when you're taking a big bite out of this sandwich, you need a beverage to go with it. And we're not talking about a soda or juice, we're talking about that adult time. Soda and juice, what do you like to drink? We want to know in the comments. And as I continue to go in on the idea, what should be the show's drink? What kind of combination could the Uncle Bobby adult time drink be? What kind of variations of mixes do you crazy people have out there? And as we figure out what drink should go with the adult time conversation and possibly be the drink that we'll be responsibly drinking throughout these conversations, I was thinking to myself, why not go back into the idea of, you never make it famous till you get a sandwich made of your name, and I like to think that 5 posts of YouTube going global would like to help me do that. another idea that I'm pitching while we're pitching ideas again, because I got to run them by you again. So we finally find that video that goes viral, that people respond back to. And maybe we could get this going. Give me that 50 subscribers to go live. Maybe get that million. Because I'm looking to give you, thousands of hours of consumption time. I'm looking to be that number one source you go to when you want to crash out on the internet for the morning, afternoon, and whenever we catch you. And yeah, enjoying the cannabis. Possibly the Windex. Sorry about that. I had to stop what I was doing for a second. When you're in a workspace, in the workplace, with people currently working and occupied, sometimes you got to know how to, stop in between some of these snippets before people interject themselves, into, the conversation. And, we want to hear from the fans and the folks from YouTube. We want you to interject yourself in these conversations. And, I'm going to get ready to just cut this out. And reminding you that even if your Ancestry.com says I'm not your uncle, I am your uncle, people. Until next time, remember me.